Thank you, Your Excellencies, dear friends. The purpose for me to be here today is to have an open and honest conversation with each one of you. In the next 15 minutes, which is not a lot of time, I really want to talk about some key issues that are not just energy industry related, but they're related to everything else that's happening around us. So if you can indulge with me, I would love to have your attention. This is a picture from a few years ago, actually the year 2005. This was one of the most important events that could happen for one of the groups in the world, for Christians. This was the papal conclave of 2005, where a new pope was supposed to be elected. Please pay attention to the picture for the next couple of minutes and see exactly what's happening here. A few years later, from 2005, the situation repeated itself. And this was the same picture, the same angle, but it's completely different. So what has changed? What changed in these 7 or 8 years? Technology changed everything. The lives of people have changed and transformed. And everybody now is holding a tablet, a cell phone, capturing pictures. And this is not just a smartphone in their hands, but it really signifies what technology has done to the everyday life of people. So technology continues to shape our lives in many different ways. And sometimes it's in the news, sometimes we work with it on an everyday basis, but you cannot ignore the fact that technology is everywhere and it potentially will be for the rest of the days. I want to talk to you about something that happened maybe a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. So one fine day, I come home and my wife says to me, "Did you get some Bitcoin?" And I asked her, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "Well, the prices of Bitcoin are going up. Everybody is buying Bitcoin. Did you buy some? You should have." And I had to take a step back and think about it. I had to think about what Bitcoin really was. I'm a futurist. I talk about this all the time. But my wife never indulges in that conversation, so her telling me let's buy some Bitcoin was kind of a wake-up call. Bitcoin, as we all know, is a cryptocurrency. It's creating waves in the world. The prices are going skyrocketing. Maybe many of you also have considered buying it or have some of it. It's all good. What I want to show to you is that technology is not only making things better for us, changing things in a positive way, but it's also adding a layer of complexity. Did you know that Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, is one of the most energy-intense operations? To generate 1 Bitcoin, they say it's equivalent to about powering 100,000 average homes. That's a lot of power. I'm not an enemy of any cryptocurrency. I love cryptocurrencies. I think they are a great disruption. But I just wanted to put this forward and say, hey, emerging technology is reshaping our world in many different ways. Whether we see it or not, there is an implication. So if we fast forward this and we imagine the world is generating tons and tons of Bitcoins, what kind of an energy implication would that have? Here's a graph of where the energy consumption of Bitcoin is. It's been steadily increasing month over month. And right now, you're looking at about an estimated of 34 terawatt hours per year just to power up that network. Now, this is not the case with all cryptocurrencies. The rest of them generate crypto credits in a very efficient manner. And this is just one specific example. I don't want to offend Bitcoin or push you away from it. But the question is, what is something in the financial industry doing to the energy industry? There is a relationship. And for us, it's important that we understand these relationships in order to know the full picture. According to estimates, in the next few years, the next decade or so, our energy consumption will go up by 28%, roughly 30%. And this, I believe, is a very conservative estimate. 28% based on current frameworks, current expansions, current cities, current demands, current populations of where people live. It's not based on emerging technologies such as Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or artificial intelligence that might take up a lot more energy to work than we already know. So the implications could be a lot more. I want to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. If you've heard about it, that's great. If you haven't, here it is in the next few minutes. So traditionally, global industry and human development is captured in what are called as the industrial revolutions. They started in the late 1800s, where the steam engine was invented, and steam engine replaced human power, and we were able to do a lot more because of the steam engine technology. That was a revolution, and hence the first industrial revolution. The second industrial revolution happened when electricity was invented, and now we were able to transport electricity, energy, to a larger distance and make it work in whatever way we wanted. It powered factories, businesses, and so on. The third industrial revolution happened around the 1960s with automation, where factories were automated, and now we could produce goods to a huge extent. Production was high. We could do more in less time, and that was a revolution. The era that we live in right now is the era of the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0. And this is the time when they estimate and expect that human beings and machines will work together in a much closer fashion than they have ever done before. If you've heard the terms artificial intelligence, I mentioned cryptocurrency, Internet of Things, smart cities, all of these things form part of the fourth industrial revolution. In essence, you're not talking about just one single technology, but many of them. What are some of the key things that will happen? 25% of global transactions will be on blockchain by 2025, and that's a conservative estimate. Maybe the energy industry will use blockchain. If you heard the announcement today morning, somebody announced that they were going to work with a crypto coin to exchange credits. That's the relationship and the connection between the energy industry and the cryptocurrency industry now. They also suggest that 163 trillion gigabytes of data will be generated by 2025. There's no doubt that this era of the fourth industrial revolution will be a data-driven time. This will be an era driven by algorithms. Well, algorithms work with artificial intelligence, and they decide what is the best outcome from a certain situation? What is the best mechanism to power economies, countries, healthcare, transportation, and so on? And we're also looking at smart cities, connected cars, travel to Mars. There's just so much happening. And the fact remains that we're still looking at a conservative 30% increase in energy demand by 2040. I really believe this is a conservative estimate. But maybe things will be different if things become more efficient. The World Economic Forum is an amazing body, and they do a lot of predictions every year. Here are some of them on the screen. The bolder ones are some relating to the energy industry, but there's others relating to other industries. It will be the end of the 19th century grid. We'll have cheaper, more widespread solar power, and that's happening right now. In fact, we are on that journey right now. Renewables will power mobile networks. We're not even talking about powering artificial intelligence farms. And that will be a huge energy drain on the overall generation capacity on countries, states, and so on. But what these predictions do is they give us a peek into the future. They help us understand where the future is going. If you look at some of the others, number 9, the Internet of Everywhere. Because of technologies such as the Internet of Things, the Internet will be everywhere, literally. It'll be in our cars, in our homes, in our cities, streetlights, roads. Everything is expected to be connected to the Internet. Now, that's not a huge toll only for telecommunication companies, but also for energy companies. So we've got to think about how do we cater to that demands? How do we cater to supporting smart cities? If we are pushing in that direction, how do we support that infrastructure and the energy demands of that tomorrow? They're also predicting the 5th industrial revolution, which will be a completely artificial intelligence-powered revolution. This is not here now. This could be 10, 15, 20, or 30 years from now. But essentially, everything will be controlled by artificial intelligence. We're literally not making any decisions. Everything is automated. I'm not sure if you're happy with that outcome, but that is potentially a possibility going down the road. Now, please don't be afraid of that, because let's look at the positive side. It could be a time where things are much more efficient. It's a time where we're able to create more and provide more. So there's the positive side of everything. I really believe that in order to succeed in today's time and era, in order to succeed and derive the best from this era of Industry 4.0, you've got to consider two different angles or two different things. In other words, before we talk about how to succeed, we need to understand what are the reasons for failure. So here are two reasons that I believe are the only two reasons for failure. The first one is misunderstanding the environment in which you operate. You move to a new country, you operate your business in a new region, you enter a new market, but you fail to understand how that market works. You're surely going to fail. If we enter a new industry and you know nothing about that industry, you will fail and you will not succeed. And that's a given. So in order to succeed with anything, we have to understand our variables, our environments. Now that is not enough, because many times we understand the variables, but we don't take the right action. And that's the second part. We don't adapt to the environment. We don't take the right decisions to succeed within that environment. So these two things are a sure recipe for success. Understand your environment, understand the industry, and the second thing, take the right action given those circumstances in that industry, in that sector, in that country. Now, these are two simple rules to follow in Industry 4.0. I wanted to show you this picture of what they term as a smart city. A smart city is a loosely coined word that talks about a city that is automated, that has technology built everywhere. You could call it the city of the future. But essentially the idea is that automation has taken over, artificial intelligence has taken over, the Internet of Things is embedded in every single thing within that city, so that managing resources, managing buildings, managing these intelligent organisms within that city, connected cars, driverless cars, it's going to be a complex environment. I don't think it's going to be as simple as just going out and driving in your car. In the smart city of tomorrow, probably we won't even drive because it's too dangerous for humans to drive, because automated cars are efficient, they avoid accidents, the insurance companies love automated cars because they don't cause accidents, and hence that world will be a much more complex world that is hugely driven by technology. Now, all this infrastructure, once in place, let's fast forward ourselves 20, 30 years from now, because that's what we're planning. We're planning the next 10, 15, 20 years from now. Imagine this time, and imagine the energy requirements of all these things that are running. It's going to be a lot of energy, whether it's fossil energy, whether it's renewable energy. We're not even at that point. But these cities of tomorrow are going to need a lot of energy to run efficiently. So let's plan for that capacity. Let's plan for these things to happen 20 or 30 years from now. Now that we understand a little bit about what the future holds, we also need to understand, how do we really succeed in this era? Like, what should we literally do to succeed in this time of tremendous amount of complexity, technology, internet-powered technologies that are demanding a lot of energy and resources? And what I have is literally the definitive guide to succeeding in this era. It's quick steps. Step number one, or area number one to focus on, is engagement. The cities of tomorrow have to engage. And I saw some great examples of engagement during the conference here and also within the UAE. Engagement is not only just engaging with your customers, your vendors, but it's also engaging with the people that you serve. It's also engaging with the communities that you're part of, and also engaging with the broader global world. Now, the world actually is becoming smaller. We have representation of or attendees from 150 plus countries at this event. This wouldn't have been possible 15 or 20 years ago. So in order to really drive results, in order to reshape those outcomes, we've got to engage with people from all aspects of life. More so with people who are directly affected by what you do. And these could be people living in the UAE. These are your vendors. These are companies operating within your region, your country, and so on. And unless you do that in this era powered by Industry 4.0, it'll be hard to succeed. And that's what it is. Because technologies are changing the way we think, we behave, we communicate. I mean, our smartphones have changed our lives. Our dinner table conversations have changed. So it's essential for this era to be an era of learning, where we have to take the step and understand how technologies work. Imagine you know nothing about a connected car, and you step into one, you would have no clue what to do. Imagine living in a smart building that operates automatically, and you don't know how it operates. We'll probably get injured, and that's not good. I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, and what I see is that the need to learn is really the biggest need that we have. We've got to embrace change in a way so that we're learning new things, new concepts, and taking a deep dive into things we don't understand. And that's how you will succeed. If you don't know anything about cryptocurrencies, go up and read on it. If you don't know anything about renewable energy, go up and read on it. But learning is going to be a key focus area within this time. Now, without collaboration and partnerships, and this is something that I'm seeing here a lot, you can't do anything without partnerships. Partnerships are at different levels. They're between the private and public sector. They're between vendors and governments. They're between so many different constituents. Without partnerships, nothing happens. We're also seeing a huge startup movement in general, not just in the UAE, but across the world, where many thousands and thousands of startups are emerging. They're doing great things. And this is the best time to engage with them and to figure out how can they add value to the whole picture. Or can they? Or can they not? But it's the best time for vendors, companies, governments to engage and collaborate and partner with other people as much as they can. If you can support an incubator, please do that. If you can support a group of hungry people who are ready to create change, then please do that. It has to start at a grassroots level. Now, we've always been people-centric. I cannot believe when people say we're not people-friendly. Everybody is people-friendly. But I think along the lines we forget that. We sometimes forget that people are at the center of everything that we do. And we've got to remember that. Any outcome, any change, anything we build, create, or anything that we're doing today, it's all about people. It's about making the lives of people better. It's about changing what they do. It's about giving them more than they need. And that's what the focus has to be. The Industry 4.0 era is going to be a challenging time because technology will be everywhere. And you can't serve technology with technology. You've got to keep people at the heart of the conversation. It goes without saying that if we're not accountable, nothing will happen. Now, some of the emerging technologies, including blockchain, does a really great job at accountability because it automates it. We no longer have to worry about transactions because we now have a guaranteed proof that something has occurred. Is that going to make us lazy? Well, maybe to some extent. But then technology, when it takes over that role of accountability, I think it's a foolproof way of making sure that some change has occurred. But having said that, even if artificial intelligence manages everything, even if things are powered by blockchain or any other technology, we've got to take the personal responsibility of being accountable. We have to be accountable for the change that we are responsible for and the change that we can create. Many times we are bogged down by chasing the material world. And I don't mean that's a bad thing. It's really great to have a great life and to be comfortable, to live life as you like. But as an organization, as a people, when you start shifting your focus from being finance specific or finance driven to being a value creator, you change the equation. Now, being a value creator is not about thinking revenue and thinking finances, but with everything that you do, you've got to think about what value does this bring to the community that you're serving, to your customers, to your constituents, to your residents, to your countries. And that shift, when it occurs, creates a larger change. In this era and the future, unless you don't change yourself and think as a value creator, it will be very difficult to move forward because you can't ignore competition. There will be competition. There will be the race to chase the buck. But when you become a value creator and collaborate with others, that is the golden mix. Now, Maslow, a long time ago, created a theory called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he talked about actualization being the greatest thing to happen for people. This is after your food, shelter, and all of those things. But I think in this era and the era that is coming, actualization for organizations, for governments is a must. This is where you go above and beyond your call of mission. This is when you transcend the boundaries of just remaining within your zone. Now, actualization for people is easier than it is for organizations because organizations and governments are more complex. But to have it as a goal and to chase it as a goal, as a long-term goal, will really drive people together and keep them together within your organizations. So that's a key aspect within the era of 4.0 to chase and to have. To conclude, I really want to show you a few different things and give you an understanding of what will the next 5 or 10 years or 20 years to say the least, will bring to us. And all they're bringing are different revolutions. Okay, so let's go through them. The first one, transportation revolution. The Hyperloop is going to be a reality by 2025, hopefully, and you could travel between Dubai to Abu Dhabi in, say, 15 minutes. I think that's a game changer. And the same thing is happening in Canada, in the US, in Europe, in many different parts of the world. Maybe by 2030 or 2040, Hyperloop will really be big. So that's a transportation revolution. Communication revolution, did you know that smartphones will be outdated by 2025? So no more iPhones, no more Samsungs. God only knows what we'll have. Well, we will have no smartphones. And that's just a prediction of how things are turning out. Maybe by then, artificial intelligence would have taken over many different things. Devices will be embedded in us, implanted in us, and we won't need smartphones anymore. So that's where we're going. That's the time that's coming in the next decade or so. We'll definitely have driverless cars. I was talking to a bunch of insurance companies a couple of weeks ago, and I was in fact at CES in Las Vegas. And the insurance sector loves driverless cars. They like it because the liability is lower, they're more safer, and they really want to push that industry forward. So driverless cars will become a reality, whether it's in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years. People will be restricted from driving on the roads. We also have a galactic revolution, where we want to inhabit Mars by 2030. I really love this goal. We have so much to do on planet Earth. We haven't done enough yet. But that's a great goal to have. Maybe we can explore other things. But that is a revolution. Did you know that virtual reality and mixed reality will completely replace the education system? Our children and their children will not read from books anymore. They will probably work through those headsets. They will learn in a virtual world. There will be no need to go to a university anymore because they're getting the education where they are from any VR or mixed reality headset. And that's how the education industry will change. They also say that by 2050, we will have the end of fossil fuels. I really hope that the time is earlier. But there's also the challenge of growing countries, developing nations that are bogged down by an explosion of population. They have to be dependent on coal. They have to be dependent on fossil fuels to some extent. Will we be able to eradicate that by 2050? There's many, many years till 2050, and it's a huge possibility that maybe that will happen with the replacement of fossil fuels by PV or nuclear or what have you. And last but not least is the mind revolution, where man and machine will be one. Essentially, artificial intelligence will work with us through embedded systems. People will be implanted with AI systems. And I think somebody also announced that it will be necessary to protect human beings from AI to a specific layer of AI that will keep a border between us and the evil AI. And these are all realities that will happen in the next few years. So this is the world that we're going towards. So try and imagine what are the implications of the energy industry and how are we going to support this world tomorrow. Just to conclude, I really believe that the future is value-centric. And unless we don't create value, change will not happen. And I think we should strive to build cities that are not just smart, but they're sustainable, they're helpful, and they're an oasis of happiness for people. And they don't just work in their local context, but they work within the larger world and the larger globe. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you have a great conference. Thank you.